All right, welcome back to another episode of the Second Alarm Podcast. We are with Maurice Philogene today, and Maurice is a personal life coach as well as a apartment syndicator with the Quattro Group. And I'm excited to have him on because I have followed the Quattro Group for probably a couple of years now, and I've talked to a couple other members, but I've never actually got to meet you and talk with you. So I'm excited to have you on and talk about providing a better lifestyle for us, for our families, and doing that through real estate.
Yeah, man. My pleasure, Seth. I'm happy to be here, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start off by, I guess, kind of talking about how you kind of got started with. We can do kind of how you get started with the life coaching program or
Yeah.
the trylifeon.com way that you mentor people, and it's not. I love it because it's not just real estate; it covers all
Nah.
facets of life. Maybe we start with that and what that looks like.
Well, I will, and let me just give people a sense of where I am. That way, they'll understand where I'm coming from. So, where
Yep.
I am now, I'm 47. I'm a dad of two. I'm based in DC, but I split my time between DC and the Mediterranean. I'm usually in Cyprus or Lebanon. I exited the W-2 or the traditional careers. In the last 3 years, I retired from the military after 22 years. I retired from a company called Accenture, which is an IT consulting firm, after 25 years. And I retired from being a street cop in DC after 15 years.
Oh
So I've
wow.
left everything W-2, which is tough transition.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: all of it, all those careers, and then X number of real estate units and the international real estate development stuff overseas and traveling to 100 countries. All of it was because when I was 21, I figured out that life could be more than just the 2.5 kids, the white picket fence, and a dog, 5 mortgages, 2 car payments, all those types of things. I was kind of bootstrapping it back in the day when I was 20s. What you're seeing now with the Try Life On mantra and movement, as I call it, because a lot of people have jumped onto it, is there are ways that we can try life on now. We have been conditioned over 20 years of formal schooling, commercials, TV, that there is a certain way to operate in our lives going into the corporate world or whatever work world, getting those 2 paychecks, getting up every day, pressing repeat on the 9 to 5. To me, something didn't feel right about it in my early 20s. And now that I have executed on my own lifestyle that I don't need a vacation from, what you're seeing with Try Life On or trylifeon.com is me helping other people create lifestyle that they do not need a vacation from. And to your point, money is a part of it. It will always be a part of everything, but there's so many ways to try life how you want, how you can plug into planet in life, that have zero to do with money, everything to do with intention and making conscious decisions. So that's where Try Life On has come from. But based on my experiences over the last 25 years, doing everything that we just talked about.
Yeah. So I couple questions. Were you a police officer while you were doing like? How did that look? How did you were you doing IT and being a police officer? Or you were a police
Yeah,
officer, then you went IT. Like, how did that look? Because coming from the fire service, one, uh, you know, thank you for your service with the military. Because
you
I mean,
too, bro.
my dad was in the military, was in Vietnam, and I know that he struggled with things throughout his whole life, and even towards the end of his life was
Yeah.
got tough. And so I never did the military. I went into I went into the fire service, and that was kind of like my service, if you will, to the country and to my community. But
Mhm.
how did you balance all of those things? Like that seems like a lot. You got multiple careers happening at one time. So how did you
Yeah.
do that?
I post about this shit all the time on LinkedIn. I was always in the military and at Accenture since I was 21. So I did ROTC in college. I have no history of military in well, my brother was in the military, but the reason I went in because I needed money for college. That was the
Mm-hmm.
only reason. But when I graduated in '97 from University of Virginia, they said there's too many officers coming out nationwide. You can go guard reserve if you want to. Well, Accenture, which was then Anderson Consulting, got renamed in 2001. Their starting salary was like 37.5, I think it was, or 42.5, something like that. And the military as a second lieutenant, it was 24 grand. Like, yeah, I know exactly what I'm about to do. So I've always had the military as a reservist, been in the military as a reservist. But here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing: my chosen profession in the military was being a federal agent. So every military organization has its own version of the FBI. Most people know NCIS from the TV show. The Air Force's version of NCIS is called OSI, Office of Special Investigations. When I jumped into OSI, they have reserve agents, but by the nature of you being a fully credentialed federal agent, you're not really reserve. It doesn't really work that way. So I was a federal agent throughout my professional career. I was always an IT executive at Accenture throughout my professional career, both for 20 plus years. The street cop stuff came in 2008. So I started military and Accenture in 97. Street cop came in 2008 because when I got back from being deployed after 9/11,
Mm-hmm.
man, I didn't like the idea of sitting in a office on K Street in DC doing corporate shit. It really messed with me. And I think that's a problem that a lot of military people have. You're around the world doing these amazing things, impacting an enormous amount of people's lives, and then you're said you're pretty much told, look, your orders are done. Go back to normal life. It's
Yeah.
not easy to do that. So I did all those 3 careers, and yes, I struggled at times, but I wanted to try life my way. Being a street cop was important, and I had one break. My boss in 2007 at the consulting firm, which was my major employer, when I told her I was going to leave consulting to go be a street cop and give up 80% of salary, she was like, "Don't do that. Don't do that. We'll find a way for you to do both." So she supported it. I was a street cop at night, exec during the day, and I just
Wow.
did it for 15 years.
Wow. Yeah, and that's third shift is no joke either. I mean, that's what that's always the times when it was crazy at the firehouse. So like I said, you'd be maybe slow during the day, but at night would always be nuts. And then the guys that
Yeah,
worked
man.
third shift for the police department, I mean, they were a different breed too. They were, they a lot of them chose it because they liked the craziness of the evenings and the nights.
Well, where did you
Here, like Columbus, Ohio area.
Columbus, Ohio? So
Uh-huh.
you call it third shift, we call it midnights. Midnights, there's nobody on the road. There's no brass at the office bothering you. You're
Yep.
just your own man or woman out there doing your thing. And that was a thing. So, okay, so if I can manage my own time in the middle of the night, I was doing IT consulting work inside the car. I was researching real estate in between calls. I was prepping for my next day. So it was the only thing that would really work with my chosen lifestyle was midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Did you feel like the nights there? I mean, I guess were you in like DC metro area? Were
Yeah,
you a police
DC
officer?
Metro. A
So
place called Montgomery County, Maryland, but it borders DC. So it's all the same area.
yeah. So was it crazy at night? I mean, in
Oh,
between I mean, that to me is like the like you said, you don't have the brass there, you don't have the structure of the day to day stuff. But then at night, it's like, at least for us, everything always went. That was always a lot of the crazy stuff happened was overnight.
there was always the crazy shit that
Yeah.
happened. Man. It was shootings, robberies, fires. Like I love the fire guys that I used to work with. I still see a lot of them now.
Mm-hmm.
But what I appreciated about it was think about it, brother. I played football in college, and I had a couple tryouts for the NFL. And when football was over, I really struggled, and I think that's why I ended up going to the police department, or maybe even a firehouse would have been appropriate for me. I missed the huddle.
Yeah.
I was missing looking back at 10 other people like, yo, what are we about to do? All right, that's the plan. All right, let's go out there and let's go get it. And that's what policing is, good policing. I don't even want to get into the bad policing conversation
Mm-hmm.
right now. I'm kind of tired of it. But the good men and women who are out there, we would go to roll call, eat dinner together, effectively high five, and then go out on patrol and back each other up and try and get each other home to our families at 6 a.m. in the morning, do good for residents and civilians or citizens or what have you. I love that shit. And if the environment wouldn't have changed, Seth, in terms of how the negativity towards the policing
Mm-hmm.
environment, I wouldn't have retired.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
loved it.
I'm right there with you. I mean, I that is why I did 22 years, and I wasn't when I got into real estate, because that was kind of for me was 2012-ish.
Yeah.
I I wasn't a person that, like you probably talked to, that's like, I hate my job, or this is miserable, like I got to do something different. Like it wasn't an escape for me. It was kind of an addition to, and I loved the career because of what you just said. And my
Yeah. Yeah.
brother,
Yeah.
like my brother played college baseball, went to, did the whole thing. And then when he got done, he was kind of lost for a little while. He ended up going
Yeah.
into the fire service, but he went into the fire service for the same reasons that you just said, was that he was used to being on a team and being a part of a group and having a common goal. And he just didn't, like, he was kind of lost trying to fulfill that or feel that. in the actual working world. So he ended up, after we talked a bunch and he kind of knew what I had done in my career at that point, he went into the fire service as well and still is in it to today. So
I think that's the thing that I did right, man, was I think it's okay for some, like my dad was an educator for 30 years in Boston public schools, right? Teacher and then principal. But I think it's also okay for people like you and I who have an interest in having multiple careers. I never fretted. Like I got to the top of the IT consulting world. I went right back down to the bottom to start in the policing world. I was at the bottom to start in the real estate world. Same thing for international real estate, or I opened some clubs and restaurants in DC. I never liked the idea of like, and I felt it when I left football. My part of my identity was gone.
mm-hmm.
It sucked. Dude, it sucked so much. When I was 21, I had that NFL tryout. When I was 26, I did the same thing at my company that I did relative to police. I went to my company and I was like, and I asked, I'm very good at asking better questions. And it's a tactic that I tell people, stop trying to quit your job all the time. Maybe you just need to ask them better questions. And one of the questions I asked them, it's like, I have this life dream to play in the NFL. I'm 26. I'm going to go give it another shot. How can you support me? What are they going to say? No. Right? So I gave them a solution to support, not a problem to solve. They let me go work, and my solution was let me work 20 hours a week while I go to grad school.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to grad school at 26, played another season of college football, got another tryout for the NFL, didn't make it, but I finally put that badge of honor down. I needed to give it another shot, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, identity is definitely wrapped up in a lot of things that we do, but that's what I think I got right. Like my identity is spread across so many different things that I have been trying life my way, as I say, right? Trying
Yeah.
life on.
No, yeah, I love that. And I think that's again, to the fire service. I mean, it was another reason why it was hard for me to leave was because it's all I'd ever done since I was
Yeah.
18
Yeah.
was be a fireman. And it wasn't just a job. It was like who I am. It's like a calling, all that kind of stuff. And I think that like you said, people get stuck in that where they're an IT professional or they're a contractor or they're whatever their
Mhm.
kind of role they kind of go into in life, that's the only lane or the only way to do things. And they just kind of get stuck in a rut.
But Seth, that's what they were told and
Yeah,
taught.
it's true.
Remember, like grade school, high school, college, it was always not once did them people in those formal education platforms ever tell me and Seth, yo, when you get out to the real world, go try this, go try that, go try that. Everybody wanted you to have your life fucking figured out at 18 or 21. What do you want to be? That? Okay. Go pre-med, become a doctor. You're going to be a doctor for life.
Yeah.
I can't. I never liked that idea. Even now, I've started a new industry as of last year, doing some stuff in the media space where I'm like, oh, I want to learn. I don't want to be the best in the room. I want someone to teach me something. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think it's a good thing when you branch out like that.
So how have you taken the things that you've learned through those years and the lessons that you've kind of like, how are you packaging that up and helping other people through Try
Mm,
Life On? What does that
yeah.
look like?
So I have come to now. I have formalized it in the last 2-3 years, but I figured something out in my 20s and 30s that I never had the ability to articulate until now. And this is what it is. If you can orient your life towards one or more of the following 5 freedoms that I'll talk about, we tend to be happier. The 5 freedoms are time freedom, financial freedom, geographic freedom, freedom to execute your purpose. I didn't go be a police officer for the money. You know that, right?
Mhm.
And freedom to build meaningful relationships. People who are stuck at the office from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. are not building relationships with Seth and Maurice so they can go be a real estate investor later, or not building a relationship with that street cop who's a neighbor so you can go to police academy. They're stuck in those 4 walls. So you have those 5 freedoms: time, financial, geographic, purpose, relationships. What I have done is started to help people understand how to orient those things. And here's how I do it. Adults, we forgot to dream. We don't know how to dream no more. We forgot. Remember when we were in kindergarten, we would dream
Mhm.
about everything. What I get people to do is to write down their perfect day in excruciating detail, from every level of emotions to colors, sounds, smells, location, everything. So I'll give you an example. One of the coaching students I work with now, for her, it's living in Madrid, Spain. She wants to be a real estate investor. She wants to live on the Mediterranean. And she was working, sorry, I said Spain, I meant Portugal. She was working in New York as a marketing executive, making 250 grand, which is great. But she also has a $5,000 efficiency apartment, which makes no sense. So she needs the $5,000 efficiency apartment to get the $250,000 job, but you need the 250 to pay for the five. Like, it's just a cycle. So what we did was, what's your perfect day? For her, her perfect day was being in Portugal, having access to the rest of Europe, immersing in culture, and doing all types of things. When she wrote it down with all the emotion, and you could see all the dreaming and all the dreams of as a kid that was inside coming out. So she knows her perfect day and what she wants it to feel like. You can create your personal blueprint off that perfect day. How do you want life to be? Where do you want life to live? What is your family what is your family going to be built as? What type of work do you want to be in? Where do you want to be, etc. Under your personal blueprint, you do your business blueprint. Okay. So when I built Quattro Capital, for example, no employees, no brick and mortar, no signs, no building, no offices. I don't want titles. I don't want any of the garbage that formal education has told me that's how we are supposed to work. All right. So my business blueprint is not for me to go make money. I will make money as a byproduct of doing good, but my business blueprint is to match my personal blueprint, which includes I love being around the world. I love immersing in culture. This is me personally.
Yeah.
Right. And then that personal blueprint is what gives you the ability to potentially have that perfect day anytime you want to. And real life, real talk, we're not going to have the perfect day all the time. It's impossible. It's not normal. However, on Sunday, Seth, I'm going to get on a plane. I don't have a ticket. I know how to travel hack. I'm going to go back to the Mediterranean. The reason I'm going to go to the Mediterranean on Sunday is because that's my perfect day. I'm building a home over there. I have set up Quattro Capital to be a totally virtual thing. I worked my ass off to have passive income, etc. I have the ability to have my perfect lifestyle whenever I want to. So I bring all those things, orienting around those 5 freedoms, helping people create their personal blueprint and their business blueprint. There are blockers to each one. So, for example, I have one guy who works for a very large U.S. bank that I won't say. And because he works for that bank, he cannot travel overseas. He wants to be overseas. Well, that's a blocker. So for him, he has some decisions to make. He can ask the employer better questions, figure out the policies, or get a virtual job that will support his personal blueprint. But what you and I were taught was get the job that has the highest title, that has the highest pay. Build the business that has the highest amount of revenue that keeps you stuck in Washington, D.C. or Columbus, Ohio. It's garbage. It should be oriented around our life. And that's what I push people to do, is to build lifestyle they don't need a vacation from, but leveraging all the experiences, tips and tactics and tools that I've figured out over the years.
How do you, so, and maybe that's, you said a couple things that I like that is, like you said, you worked really hard to be able to have passive income that allows you to kind of do some of these things. And then you've got the person that you're working with that makes the 250,000 a year, that has the $5,000 apartment. Like, how do you get to the point where you're having the passive income? Like what was that work like that you did? Right. I know you had a career and you worked hard, probably saved your money. Like, how did you get to the point where you had enough passive income to support that lifestyle? And I get what you're saying, where you kind of identify, like, put it up on the board, like, this is the perfect life that I want, or the perfect day. And then kind of like work backwards. Like, how do I get to that? You know what I mean? And what advice do you have for people that are either they're listening to this today and they're just like, oh, I never thought about that. Like, let me go do that. And then like what's the first like 3 things that they need to do, the first initial steps? Because I think that's what a lot of people that I talk to are like, they're like, if they're in their 50s, they've already, they didn't unplug from the matrix, if you will, until they're 51 years old. Or, if you're 22 and you hear this and you're like, man, that's what I need to do. You've got tons of time. But how do you, like, if the gal and maybe even utilizing your services, like, she can afford to be able to pay for some of those things because of
Mm.
the job. Like the job. Like
I
how
got you.
how does that work?
I
Or
got
what's
you.
your
And the first, you said, what are the three things? I'll tell you the first thing. The first thing is realize you don't need passive income at all.
mm-hmm.
So I don't want to try life on is not predicated on someone generating passive income. No, no, it's not even predicated on you being an investor. No, it's predicated. So there's two kinds of financial freedom. Okay. And my understanding of financial freedom has really evolved over time. The more people I've coached, the more my own definition has shifted. My original definition for financial freedom, which is still valid, more passive income than bills. That's an easy one to understand. If you have $5,000 in bills and you have $8,000 of passive income, you're free. You can't argue that.
Mm-hmm.
But not a lot of people have the ability or have never thought about buying stuff to create passive income. Okay. So just like homegirl who came out of New York, she doesn't have the 250. What she has now is 75. She took a virtual job being a part-time developer.
Mm-hmm.
She chose the mobility and the geographic freedom and gave that more weight than the other bullshit 120 grand.
Mm-hmm.
So other students that I'm working with now, what they're trying to do is reorient how they make income. Of course, you can go get passive income. I'm going to talk about passive income 1 second, but people are trying to reorient. So they're going after virtual jobs. COVID changed everything. We know that there are virtual jobs everywhere. They are not going away. So if you want to if you're making 150 right now and you go down to 100 grand passive income, virtual income, but it gives you the ability to live where you want, to have a more flexible schedule, to live the lifestyle that you want. Why wouldn't people do that?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because of 20 years of formal school conditioning that says you are successful if you have the title of executive VP or CEO. No one ever said during that formal education, you are successful if you create a lifestyle you don't need a vacation from.
Yeah.
That's the difference. All right. How you make income is one thing. You can create a lifestyle with that. The other thing, though, about investing, which is really important, at some point, you are not going to want to make income the way you are. You're going to be too old making income the way you are, or physically not able. The reason why I was able to get off the career highway at age 46, or exit 46, as I call it, is because I invested my ass off for the previous 20 years. So I had the option of leaving work and continuing to live my lifestyle. I was doing all the travel stuff, trying different careers and all that prior to passive income. I took the roles at Accenture that were international oriented, or that let me work from home, or that I had availability for my autistic son, my only son at the time. To my own detriment, I took roles that would have zero upward mobility. But I won. I
Mm-hmm.
won because I took those amazing paychecks. Now, here's a passive income chat. I took those amazing paychecks and systematically invested those things in real estate since I was 22 years old and never stopped. Thank God I found a book when I was 21 and I never stopped. So that was 2002 to 2014. By the time I got to 2014, I had 35 single family homes. I sold some, kept the others, found myself with 18 paid off homes generating 160 in passive income. But
Nice.
I stayed working, Seth, for another 8 years. It goes to
Mm-hmm.
show you it's not about money, man. It's about what it is that makes you happy and creating your own lifestyle, etc. So I just wanted to, back up a little bit and not express to people you can only have lifestyle if you have passive income.
Mm-hmm.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Get the mechanism by which you can get the lifestyle, which could be a virtual job or even a job you love. I felt free when I was a cop, when I was a police officer. I was executing my God-given purpose. So it's not a matter of passive income or investing, but you do have to pay attention to that stuff for later.
Yeah, and I think it's great points because there's how many people are out there that are making 250,000, but they're miserable, like you said, or they're making tons of money and they're miserable. It's because they're not executing the lifestyle that they really want.
Bruh, we get out of our house, we take a Uber to the metro station. We take the metro to downtown, wherever you are. We go to the office, we sit in a box, and at 11:30 we come out, we go to Subway sandwich, we eat a 12-foot hoagie, a Diet Coke, and go back to work, and then get back on the train at 5 o'clock, tired, have to do family stuff, finally get the kids to bed at 8 p.m., have 3 Miller Lights, go to bed, and press repeat again.
Yeah.
For some people, that's fine. And I think that that's okay because they may be doing something at the office that they really enjoy. And I respect that.
Hmm.
But for others, they're just doing it out of default because that's what they see everybody doing. And they're going after executive VP or CEO or something out of default because that's what they see everybody doing. And what I'm doing with Try Life On is to express to people you can do it your own way. You don't have to go that route at all. I didn't. I did it my own way, and I can help a lot of other people do it their way.
No, I love that. Yeah, and that's something that I've talked to people about too. Is like, what do you need if we speak financially?
Hmm.
Because like you said, that plays into it, right? I mean, if you have no money and no way to make money today, it's hard for you to think
Hard.
about going to live in Madrid and on the Mediterranean or doing whatever. I mean, how people have to understand that there has to be some of that, like you said, and but how you do that doesn't necessarily have to be the 9 to 5 or I
Correct.
mean, if you're making a large amount of money, most of the time it's not 9 to 5. It's 60, 80 hours a week. It's a lot more than that. It's a lot more commitment. And
Oh,
if somebody's paying you that kind of money, they own you. I mean, that a lot of the
they
guys
don't,
I
you are renting your time. And what you said about you said, and I said, so I want to back up off of it a little bit, but Mediterranean, Madrid, Portugal, forget that. Just the single mom who wants to be home with her kid in DC.
Yep.
That's the woman that I want to help. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Why can't she have a lifestyle by which she has the ability to be available for her kid? One of the reasons that they're not doing it is because there's so much pressure that you have to be something that you never wanted to be in the first place. So it's just truly breaking down the definition of what it means to be successful. And then things like I have learned how to make the world smaller. So last week on a Friday, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to San Francisco today. And I got to San Francisco for probably $130 because of travel hacking. And I hung out there for the weekend, caught up with a business partner. First time in California in 20 years. I was trying life on. That stuff, me going to the Mediterranean on Sunday, it seems extraordinary to people, but it's not extraordinary for me. It's ordinary at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to Turkey during the week. I would leave DC on a Wednesday night, arrive in Turkey. I was deployed to Turkey at one time, so I have a lot of friends in Western Turkey. Arrive to Turkey, sit on the Aegean Sea, read a book, get back on a plane on Monday, be back in DC. I did that like 30 times. It's normal.
Yeah, well, and then the travel hacking, well, that's probably a whole nother topic
Yeah,
where
that's a whole
that
nother
could
topic.
be that could be discovered because that sounds like something that I need to know more about because
Yeah.
we're getting more into traveling and whatnot. But um, no, I think that it's 100% right. Your perfect day doesn't have to be in Europe. You know what I mean? And like you
No.
said, it's the same thing with like my mom. I grew up in a house where my parents split up when I was 10. My mom
Yeah.
had no education. There was five of us. She was just grinding it out, trying to make ends meet. And to I wish that I could have, that you again, I was 10, so I wouldn't have had it, but I wish that there would have been somebody that would have been able to help her or talk to her about these things because that's exactly it, right? It's just relieving some of the pressure, maybe just thinking about it differently, and not, like the book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan really changed my life early on when I was getting
Yeah,
into,
I'm
I
aware
got
of
into
it.
real estate again. That was the vehicle that I used to get freedom. But I had to realize that it couldn't always be me doing the work.
Correct.
And, like I said, a lot of people, they just get another job or they just get another part-time job. And instead of changing the way they see things or how they create income, they just put their head down and work harder, work longer. And I feel like it's a lot of it has to do with why there's the divorce rate is the way that it is, or why people are miserable, or the suicide rate. There's all kinds of different things. But I think, like you said, a lot of the pressure that people have on themselves is it's tremendous. And the more kids you have, the more bills you have, the more all of those different things will add to it. But
Yep.
you know, you get stuck in a rut or you get stuck in a path that you start when you're in your 20s and by your mid 30s or your 40s, you're no longer happy there anymore. Or maybe you haven't been happy there for 10 years but you
And
just don't know
people,
you don't know how to get out of it.
yeah, and people are afraid to come down off the mountain that they've built.
Yeah.
You come down off the mountain, then you'll go back to feeling like you did in elementary and middle school, where everything was new, right? And I want to highlight something you said because it was super powerful, but I think people will miss it if I don't call it out. That book, I haven't read it, but I'm aware of it. Who, Not How. That last freedom principle that I talked about, freedom to build meaningful relationships, it's not networking. Networking's bullshit. Networking is the little, I'm going to go meet someone and get something from it. That's not
Mm-hmm.
what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is we need space in our life to go connect with extraordinary people, because it's the extraordinary people that will shorten the distance for the goal that Seth and Mo have. So let me give you an example. When I did want to be a street cop, it was a state trooper in Maryland who motivated me, who said something to me one day. I was doing a search warrant when I was a federal agent in DC back in 03, 04. He said something, and I'm like, oh my God. He pulled me. He gave me the information. So I ended up being a street cop. When I wanted to do real estate overseas, so I'm developing apartment complexes and villas in Cyprus right now. When I wanted to do that, and by the way, it wasn't a money thing, it was a purpose thing. The reason I started developing real estate overseas is because I want to experience a different lifestyle. I don't want to be the American dude who shows up in the restaurant. I want to be the American dude that everybody knows that he's trying to do something good for that community. It's the only
Mm-hmm.
reason. And then I wanted a different lifestyle. I'm born in New York, raised in Boston, live in DC. I've done East Coast. I'm good. I love the East Coast. Thank you. But I need to try something different before I
Yeah.
die. Right. The way that I made it happen in 2.5 years, where I own 3 companies over there now. Okay. And maybe like, I don't know, just under 10 million of real estate over there, which is growing, is a person. The thought was seeded in my head in 2015 when I deployed to Turkey the way that I told you. I ran a field office for my federal law enforcement agency. If you drive south from where I was on the Aegean Sea, but if you drive south, you hit the Mediterranean Sea. Something about it said, I'm going to live or work here one day. I don't know how. It was a seed in my head. In 2019, I was having a conversation with a friend. She reminded me that someone who we went to college with, her husband was a Cypriot, and he was a real estate developer on the island. It immediately hit my head, and I'm like, oh shit, that's the sign. That's it. How long do you think it took me to get into that guy's living room in Cyprus?
If you're motivated like that, not long.
3 months I was in his living room. Within a year, we had done our first deal. And I was just on the phone with him before I called you.
That's awesome.
People. But if I didn't have the freedom to go connect with him, or if I spent my ass on K Street in DC in a box with 4 walls looking at company documents at 9 p.m. at night when I should be expanding my horizons as a human, it never happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's breaking the old conditioning of, let me stay at the office so I can go get the next title. No. Go do the thing that's going to go get you the next thing for your design life. That's the most important thing. So I love what you said about people. It's really important. So I wanted to give that example.
Yeah. No, and I can greatly appreciate the difference between networking and creating relationships or having true relationships with people that are impactful, because I
Yeah.
think that's missed, right? Is like you said, you go to like a networking event, the traditional networking event that you would think if you're in an office or whatnot, where you're there to try to get something from some, like, how does somebody in this room solve my problem? Or, even I feel like it's different in real estate, where a lot of people are giving, and a lot of people want to, like, they want to align and be allies rather than just networking.
Yes.
But I mean,
Yeah. That's why I
I've
love real estate.
definitely, yeah, I've definitely been, I've been on both sides of that, where you can tell talking to somebody that they're talking to me, but they really want something from me, or
Yeah, exactly.
they want me to help them get something or get somewhere or whatever. And it's not really like, we sometimes in real estate, they call it providing value, but they're not really they're even then, sometimes I feel like it's people will call me and be like, hey, I want to be able to provide value. What about this? But it's ultimately they're doing that because they want me
Yeah.
to do something for them.
You know, for all the stuff that I've done in life and the stuff that I've been relatively successful for myself, not comparatively to other people, there's one thing I'm so proud of, and here it is. Not the real estate, not being a street cop, not being a federal agent. The thing that I'm so proud of is that if I go to the airport right now and land in maybe 20 cities in the US or land in 30 countries across the world, someone will pick me up.
Yeah.
that means that I have done something to impact that person in a positive way. And inherently, I was doing something that I now call with it, which is whenever I spend time with someone, I'm like, well, what's in it for them? And I always think that way. Like, I don't know. What can you provide for that person? How can you help that person? What can you teach them? The military stuff, or me just traveling around the world doing the philanthropy stuff that I do in Lebanon, for example, all I want to do is give, because the more you give, like, it's an addictive feeling.
Hmm.
And then you see how it impacts people, and then inevitably the universe returns something that's positive to you. Whenever the networking thing and the corporate thing, I think that's why I had so much problem with it, because it was always me, 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 me. Like, that's garbage.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent there, but relationships are important.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, like, for me, it's fulfilling, right? Like, one of the things that I love doing in the way that we have our company set up is the relationship stuff. The Like,
Yeah,
I get fulfillment out of this conversation today and meeting you and talking with you more,
yeah.
and everybody else that it, like you said, it's, you don't know what, like, this conversation today could lead to something else, and
You don't.
there's
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's that's how I got into real estate, or how I even got on the path of life changing. Was a guy that I went to college with. I just happened to just see something that he had put out on social media about real estate. And
Mm,
I reached out to him and I'm like, hey, how did you become this other person? Because the last time I had met him or seen him was before social media. He was kind of an average guy who had started a business. That business went bankrupt. It didn't work out. And
mhm,
then the last
mhm,
I knew, he was going to go into real estate to be a realtor. And fast forward 10 years, at that time, he was a multimillionaire doing hard money lending. He was
mhm.
teaching, he was house flipping, he was doing all these different things. And I'm like, how in the 10 years, I know where I'm at in 10 years. How did you get to where you're at? And when here's where I'm at. Like, how did, like, he went light years ahead of where I was at in my mind at the time. And I'm like, I've got to get a hold of him. What did
Mhm,
you do? How did you do?
mhm,
And that's what led me into doing real estate, and it's also helped me help countless other people. But it's the same thing like for you, where you did you said it only took you 3 months to get in that guy's living room, but I would argue almost that it took you, the life that you did before that, whether you started buying single family homes, you invested correctly, you worked very hard, you kept, you did all of those different things, you had all those discoveries along the way. That also helped get you in that guy's living room, because if you hadn't had all those experiences, and
Right, right, right.
and there's probably people along the way that
Yeah.
helped you, but it's no, it's amazing, and I,
Well,
yeah, the think of the thought of what you're doing over there overseas, for me, as much as in the real estate as I'm in here, that is like a completely different world. That's crazy that you're building that stuff overseas. And then, I mean, I don't know.
frustrating.
That's very interesting.
It's good, brother, because I'm growing again. I've had 3 real estate lives. My first one I told you about was a single family run.
Hmm.
My second one was in 2015 when I switched to multi. It took me 2 years to do my first deal. It was really limiting beliefs, right? It was really hard to get over the hump. But I've done 27, 26, 27, 28 complexes with before Quattro and with Quattro, but a total of 27, I think. And then my third real estate life is this international stuff. But the international stuff has zero to do with money.
Hmm.
My family's from Haiti, man. Like, we didn't have a lot growing up. I wasn't poor, but I was certainly broke. I was broke as
Yeah.
shit. And the money blueprint in my family is like my dad, work 30 years, get a pension, all that. And I respect it. But I really want to be the game changer or the generational shaker upper of my
Yes.
family. So, what is a Haitian immigrant kid doing in the Mediterranean, in Cyprus, building property and also buying land that I will never build on so I can give it back to the community later?
Yeah.
I want my last name to be known for something. So this stuff is good. And I hope what people are getting out of what I'm saying is not like, oh, he's sitting on like a soapbox. No, I'm just telling you that you can live life a very different way. Seth, you can take all that amazing real estate and all those experiences, you being at the firehouse and how many lives you saved and shit, and go apply it to affordable housing and helping those residents, and then taking $1 million of your money one day and giving it to a community so you can impact someone's life. I now understand why you see all these crazy ass wealthy people on TV who are constantly giving money away or doing all these causes, because it's infectious.
Mm-hmm.
Life is infectious if you go after it the right way. That's what I'm hoping people kind of take away from what you and I are talking about.
Yeah, no, I 100%. And I think that if people are unhappy with where they're at, it all they have to do is start looking around for trying to get. Well, one, I think they need to get into different circles of people, right? I think that's part of the
Bang
problem is,
on. Yep.
is if you're only around people that aren't, they're listening to us talk, and they think it's a foreign language and it's crazy, and there's no way. But they think that because all they've ever been told is the opposite, and then when they go to those that they trust or they like or they're around, and they say, "Hey, I heard this thing today. I heard Maurice and Seth talking about this stuff. What do you think about it?" "Oh, that's crazy. You can't do that. You can't," and it's
But I'll kill that nonsense right now. Seth is a firefighter of 20 years out of Ohio. Mo is a street cop out of DC. Don't tell me that anyone can't live life the way you want. And I've already articulated, ain't got shit to do with money.
mm-hmm.
Has to do with what you do, how you do it, to your point, who you surround yourself with. Once you have momentum on something, stay on it. Like, it's just so much you can do. And that's the thing. All that conditioning, all that, oh, Robbie down the hall is trying to get the executive vice president role, so I'm going to go do that. You don't even want that in life. And you're going to go spend now chunks of your life chasing some bullshit that you never wanted in the first place. If you want it, great. Like, I'm not downplaying it.
Right.
But if you're chasing shit out of default, do you know how much time people are wasting doing dumb shit that they never wanted to do?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot,
A lot.
and I think that part of it is I think people don't ever really, like you kind of said in the beginning, and how you kind of help people, like, if they get together with you and you're
Mhm,
like, well, think of your perfect day. Like, people don't do that. People don't stop what they're doing. They
mhm.
get balled up with life and kids and bills and everything else they have going on. And they never really give themselves the ability to stop and meditate on that and think about it. Like, what do I really want? And you're forced into stuff in your 20s that, or you're, like you said, you have to make a decision. What are you going to do? What are you going to be when you grow up?
Yep,
And if you don't have a plan by the time you're 22, a lot of people get on you about it, or they get after you about it, or they don't feel like you're getting on track correctly or fast enough or whatever. And, I, I, I think that gets people into situations or careers or whatever that they don't really want to be in.
yep,
And maybe you don't, and two, I think, you change as a person, right? The person you were in your 20s is not who you are in your 30s, and it's not who
yep,
you are in your 40s, and you're constantly growing. And I
yep,
think that we have that desire inside to constantly be growing. And if you're, like, if for me, being a fireman at 18, when I started getting into my 30s, real estate or not, I started feeling like, man, that the room got small when I thought I got to do this for another 20 years. Like, I loved it, but I also was like, I feel like there's something else out there. There's more out there that I want to do besides just this. I've done this long enough. I had a great run. I really enjoyed it,
yeah,
but I wanted to be able to do something else. And I started feeling that inside, and I never really expressed it to a whole lot of people other than a select few. But that's real estate gave me the freedom to be able to do that. And it doesn't, like we've said, it doesn't have to be real estate.
no,
Maybe you don't have anything to do with real estate and you figure it out another way. I mean, there's 1,000 ways to do it, but just, you got to figure it out. And it starts with figuring out your perfect day.
you do. So I asked my, oh, by the way, the notion of, thank you for sharing that, and the notion of us knowing everything that we want out of life in our 20s and 30s is garbage. It's garbage. I'm 47 now. I think I just totally figured out, I know exactly who the F I am now. I do. And I
Mm-hmm.
probably figured that out around 44, 45.
Hmm.
The beautiful thing is I have the revenue and the currency behind me where I have economic empowerment, so I can do what the F I want to do. But I worked for it.
Mm-hmm.
So let me run it back to someone who has nothing and then just getting started. That'll be my 22-year-old. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He is living in Atlanta now. He recently graduated from university. He's actually high functioning autistic. I'm just gonna throw that in there to prove a point. He told me when he got out of college, Dad, I don't want to sit in an office. I said, well, what do you want to do, baby? Well, I'm not totally sure. I said, well, let's think about it. Let's start designing life a little bit. What makes you happy? And he was talking to me about sports and that he misses it. And because he's autistic, he struggles with communication. But because he's physically able, he was always one of the better athletes on his college track team and stuff like that. He's like, when I'm doing physical stuff, people give me respect. All right, brother. So let's find something you want to do. So he ended up picking bodybuilding. I love to lift weights, Dad. I think I can get on stage. And I said, all right, if you want to do bodybuilding, this is how we're going to do it. If you tell me that you want to do bodybuilding, let's reverse engineer what it's going to be. And he can do something later. What I asked him was to give himself 4 years at it, right? And what he's doing now is buying one piece of property. That he has a rule. You have to save enough money for a down payment towards a piece of property that you are going to live in. But we're going to buy that piece of property knowing the exit strategy is going to be that you're going to rent that thing out. So we're not going to get a mortgage where rent won't cover the mortgage after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
But we reverse engineered the financial piece. One property a year for 10 years, 4 years of bodybuilding. You got to pay your own freight. I'll help from time to time when we need to. My son will probably never need a 401k. Probably never have to work after he does the 10 years because he understands to keep his expenses down and what have you. And his version of success is his own style of life, not what he's seeing on TV. Anyone can do that. And we're not talking about millions of dollars there. We're talking about cash flows of like $9,000, $8,000 by the time the whole process is over,
Mm-hmm.
a decade from now. You know? You can do those things rather than go chase stuff. He would be miserable sitting in an office. It just doesn't work for him. So I wanted to give an example of someone just kind of starting fresh. And then if 4 years from now, if he doesn't like the bodybuilding, switch to another career. Just make sure that you are systematically investing so you continue to have life options into the future.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's really it. And the younger you can start, the better, you know.
Oof.
100%.
Yeah, he's going to be rolling when he's 30, man. And I expect him to pivot again and to go try life on a different way. I want that for him, and I want it for everybody else too.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting the framework for that, which is what you're setting him up to do right now in his 20s, is you can't put a price on that. And I think no matter what age you are, once you realize that you need that, I think the quickest way to get to where you want to go is to hire a mentor, hire a coach, or be in the rooms with people that are doing it. Now, maybe you don't hire somebody, you're like, oh, I can't afford it right now, I'm just getting started. But you can go find people, whether it's social media or find them in different areas of DC or Boston or Columbus or wherever you live.
Yeah.
And there's other people doing it, you know, and just ask them. You know, there's a lot of people I know. Some real estate investors are very giving of their time and of their knowledge. But, you know, if I was living somewhere where I just didn't know, I'd go find like the wealthiest person that I thought I knew, whether that's you drive by their house and you're like, man, that to live in that house, like, how did that person, I remember doing this when I was a kid with my mom, you know, like, how do they, you driving by $1 million home? Like, what does that person do to be able to live in that house? Like, we just couldn't fathom it as a kid. And nobody in my immediate circle had answers.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you find yourself even as an adult and you're in a circle where nobody has the answer, then get into a different circle. And that might mean you got to go knock on somebody's front door, you know, or whatever it is.
Yep. And I have money now. I didn't have money in my 20s and 30s. You know what I had? The library. There was no Google when I was doing this shit. So every Saturday and sometimes after work during the weekdays, I was in the library, aisle 6, Fairfax County, Virginia, reading real estate books. That was my mentor. And I've made this post a couple of times on LinkedIn. It's funny that people reach out to me as a result. My first deal was a $90,000 condo in Alexandria, Virginia, and I brought the book from the library that told me how to buy condos to the closing table. And literally, when they brought out the escrow sheet or the HUD-1 or the closing sheet, it's like, read taxes, make sure they match. Okay. Signed bottom of sheet. All right. Okay, I'm done. It's all a choice. You can, and that's why I think mentors are sometimes an excuse for people, because people will be like, when I have enough money for a mentor, I will do shit. My mentor was the library for a very, very long time. And my mentors now are seminars. I pay an enormous amount of money for self-education, probably 100 to 200 grand a year. I'm self-educating on stuff. But back then, a good old book. It is amazing what successful people do. They put all of their knowledge in a book and you can literally follow it. Maybe you're not going to be as good as them, but they are telling you the answers for what you are looking for. And you know what people do nowadays? Instead of reading the book, they go on the internet and they look at a blog and they think in a paragraph they've solved it. Doesn't work that way. You can go find mentors. Mentors collapse the time frame down to the goal by oodles of time.
100%. Yep. I mean, and my mindset on that has changed. We'll kind of wind this down.
Yeah.
But my mindset has changed on that too. When I first got into this, I was still thinking of the cost. And that is something that I think that people have to change the way they think of
Got to
it.
get away
Don't
from
worry
that.
about the way that it costs, but think about what the value you're going to get out of it. And just whatever it costs, it costs. Like, but everything where I've put that down, and once I started doing that, and I'm like, you know what? I don't care what, if me going through your program cost me 10 grand or 1,000, but whatever that number is, I go through your program, but at the end of that, I have the knowledge now to 10x what
You
I just
own it.
spent.
You own it.
I'll pay that 10,000 or that 1,000 or whatever it is every day, and that's the thing that people don't know. I mean, leverage whatever you've got to do to be able to get in the room with you or someone like you to learn the knowledge and the skills that you need to be able to create the life that you want. I mean, it's huge.
And last point on that, last point, man, it was a very important point too. Oh, remember I was talking about conditioning?
Yes.
It's hard for people. It's almost like the Matrix movie, right? People don't know what they can't see. It's hard for people to understand the conditioning, but you just made the best point. Man, we will pay 50 grand a year or 100 grand a year to go get a sociology degree in a college. Now, I'm not the guy to downplay college. College did a lot of good things for me. But it's unfathomable to me that you would find someone who can mentor you and give you the exact thing that you are looking for out of life, and you won't pay 10 grand. Because high school, college, grade school always said successful people pay for college. It never said successful people pay for mentors. And if you look at anyone who's successful, and by the way, success is not tied to money. If you look at anybody successful, including wealthy people, if you want, they have always reached out to other successful people or found their way into a room with that successful person, paid for that person's time, or gave them value for their time or something. It has always been people. Yet we are conditioned that no, successful people go to college only.
Yeah, 100%.
Anyways,
Yep.
I'll leave it. Now I'm really on my soapbox because I want people to understand how impactful self-education is. And part of that is getting a mentor when you can do it. And if you can't afford it, don't care. Podcast interviews, Google, the library, get after it. Your life is worth it.
Yeah, and I'll finish with this because it kind of ties to what you said. Was that one of my business partners was in town recently from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I've known this story, but we were talking about it while he was here. Is that there was a guy in Salt Lake that wanted to get some of his time, and on a normal day, Tim would not talk to him. Tim very protective of his time, limits who gets in, but this guy messaged him and was like, "Look, I'll give you $1,500 for an hour of your time."
That says a lot.
And he was like, you tell me when, where, send me your Venmo or your Zelle or whatever, and I'll have it over to you today. I want 1 hour of your time. And Tim was that spoke to him so much that this person was willing to do that. And it wasn't like just like, oh, I'll do it and then I'll pay you later. I mean, he was like, if I'd have sent him my Venmo information, he'd have sent it to me right then and there. That got that guy in the door with him, and it's led to them doing 2 or 3 real estate deals together. But it was just, but that was the thing, right? Was that he was so like, man, like that. It was just impressive. Tim didn't take any money from the guy. He's like,
I knew it.
You were,
ask you that question.
The fact that you were willing to do that, it was like, let me put my pencil down or whatever I'm working on, and let's meet. And
I'm gonna tell you something real quick. Someone did the exact same thing to me. I'm not going to say her name, and she has closed maybe $112 million of real estate with me because she was willing to pay for my time at the beginning. That made me understand that she was serious. I never took a penny. I have made a shit ton of money since with her. People's time is so valuable, but if you can find the person who's doing the thing that you want, find a way to get their attention. I love that example. That's an awesome example.
Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the
Thank you,
conversation, man. This is it's interesting because usually, like I said, we talk real estate, but I don't feel like we talked about real estate in snippets. But what you said and what we talked about today encompasses the Firehouse Bros and what we're doing and what we're trying to teach people. And I just love it. I'm trying to, take remove the veil of
Yep.
people being stuck in the jobs that they're in or the unhappy life that they're in, and realize
Yep.
there's something else out there. And there's 1,000 ways to figure that out. But, working with you, working with us, the way that you got there is not the same way that I got there, but we have similar
Mhm.
backgrounds.
Mhm.
I love it. So I
It's
really
my
appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure. And just to since you are real estate oriented, I do want to say real estate is a massively important tool for people who are trying to try life on or change the dynamic or change the conversation in their family. But I never want people to think that they got to get hundreds of $1,000,000 in real estate. It's crap. You can have three pieces of real estate that you pay off over time that generate 4 grand for you in the long run, and then you live somewhere simply and you're good, right? So you
Hmm.
use real estate as you see fit for your life. Don't believe the hype when you see stuff on social media. Even me, if I'm talking about $40 million deals, it's because that's what I'm used to. Do a $90,000 deal or $100,000 deal. Back into the amount of money that you need to live your life your way and stop there and protect it, right?
Yes.
Real
Yep.
estate is very important. So I just want
Well,
to
yeah, like you said, buy
on that
one house
point.
a year for 10 years.
Yeah,
You're a millionaire. You got enough
you're
passive
good.
income to do whatever you want to, and now you have options.
Yep. Yep.
And your kids and your future generations are set up differently than you were. So I mean, it doesn't
Yep.
have to be doesn't have to be what you and I do. It can be this very, very simple.
You got it, brother.
But all right, well, I appreciate your time. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
My
If you
pleasure.
want to what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? I've got trylifeon.com at the bottom of this if you're
Trylifeon.com.
watching it, but if you're
Yeah,
not watching and you're listening to it, is
yeah.
that the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah. Trylifeon.com. Real estate related, thequattroway.com. But I'm definitely active on LinkedIn, Maurice Philogene. I'm active on Instagram, showing all the travel hacking, being around the world, etc. Just find me. I respond to everybody. Oh, it might take me a little bit of time, but I respond to everybody.
Yep. Very good. All right. Well, thank you. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
brother.